What's up, everybody? Kevin Allen here, and I have another special treat for Week 13. Backed by popular demand, I'm going to do another video here on how to use the DFS Army tools to create a hybrid lineup. Now, a big part of the reason I'm doing this is because not a lot of people understand what a hybrid lineup is. You know, what am I referring to? How do I build a lineup? Shouldn't I just push a button on the Domination Station Optimizer and it print a free money machine? And that's just not how daily fantasy sports work. And I'm going to give you the philosophy behind hybrid lineups and really what I mean. Hybrid lineups for me are hand-built lineups that I, in essence, build off of. So I'll start with a cash lineup approach. And when you see the Geeks picks, you see this word hybrid a lot. So I start with a cash lineup. In essence, the most chalky, best lineup I can come up with on a points per dollar basis for the slate. And then I want to start to build off of that. Now you might say, why? What's wrong with just one lineup? Well, the issue with just one lineup is NFL is a volatile sport. A lot of people don't get it. It's extremely difficult to predict what's going to happen in an NFL game, particularly when it comes to trying to predict things like touchdowns, which are high variance. The reason it's so tough is because so much of football depends on decisions that coaches make, for example. It's not like basketball where we know if LeBron James is on the court, he's going to get the ball, a certain number of times. He's going to score a certain amount of points per minute on average. Sure, he can miss a shot here or there, but he's going to have so many shots that, eventually some of them are going to fall or, it should progress to the mean. He's not getting a zero, right? He's not doing terrible. But with NFL, we're paying up for players at times. We're trying to predict if they're going to score a touchdown or two. And trust me, if you look at betting props, if you look at anything like that, you'll understand why it's very difficult to predict things in football and why we have to build a few different approaches. Because a lot of people say, well, why can't I just put the best lineup together and why won't that win the tournament? Because even if you take the best player in the best spot on paper, they fail. We can only predict to a certain level of accuracy what's going to happen in a game. So even the greatest spots. So what we want to do is build a few different approaches with our lineups for a particular week because we want to fall on the perfect lineup, right? The idea is to try to win a contest. Now, what is a hybrid style contest? Let me go with that here. Let's go to Draftkings and just give you an idea. This is a cash entry. A random double up, right? This is how I'm going to normally get started. I like to start on a cash game because what I want to do is really try to figure out what are my cash players this week. What are my best? And then from there, I'm going to start to build off of it into tournaments. And then when you go to the lobby, just to understand what I mean, and please disregard the dollar amounts, okay? Because there are, I'm going to actually lower these dollar amounts just so it appeals to more. I don't know. Yeah. Just so it appeals to more people, okay? Because there's a whole lot of, well, I don't have that much money, so I have to... People spend too much time chasing contests that look like this. It's 235,000 entrants, right? And then they wonder, why can't I win the contest? You should see what people say on social media. It's crazy. Why can't I win the contest? Because you're fucking competing against 232,000 other lineups. So every possible iteration of a lineup is going to be in there. And some shit that you didn't think of is going to win it. Okay? If you're not entering 150 lineups, don't bother with this. Right? What do I want to do? I want to find tournaments that are small. That I can win. Not these. Not the 2,000, 178,000, 19,000. No. No. You can't even find them on this initial screen, but here you go. You start to see some of the type of contests that I want to enter with my hybrids. The mini gridiron is a perfect example. 215 entrants. Here's a Hail Mary $12 entry. 490, 215. These are even big, right? But I want to enter this contest to try to win it. There's 215 other people in there. Let's look at the details here. What's first place? $750. Is that going to get you a spot on the DFS Army wall of wins? Is that going to get you, a screenshot that we're going to go crazy? No, but this is how you build your bankroll. You can win this contest if you make a really good lineup. Are you winning the 275,000 person contest? Maybe. Shit, we've had people come close. I don't know if we have a win in that type of a con. We don't have $1 million win, but I mean, we got a 200. We had a second place. We got a third place. Got 100,000. It can happen, but that should not be how. Those people who are entering that contest, they're winning these contests once in a while. That's why they have a bankroll to enter those. Because you have to win shit like this, okay? 215 entrants. Sorry, this wasn't supposed to be a bankroll management as much as a hybrid approach. But, all right, so let's start building a hybrid lineup. We're in a cool contest for it, right? And I'm going to start with my most chalky cash game approach, and I'm going to use some DFS Army tools to figure that out. All right, first thing I like to look at is the Domination Station Optimizer. Let's check it out for Draftkings, NFL, main slate. And why am I looking at this? I like to find out who's a value play based on projections. So I'm not going to really use this to generate a lineup, although I don't mind using it to kind of see who pops up. But more importantly, the first thing I do is I check points per dollar at every position. Well, who's the value? All right, there it is. So you've got the Chiefs looking like a nice value play on defense. Okay, cool beans. There's Spencer Ware, top value at running back this week. Ooh, look who's valued highly at quarterback, Cousins and Newton. That's because Cousins is underpriced and Newton is the chalk, right? So we like a higher, when you look at similar points per dollar values, the higher dollar player is the better one. Other guys pop it. Okay, let's check out position by position here. This is just an initial look. Hyde, why is he popping? Because he's probably going to get a bunch of carries and he's $3,300. But a $3,300 player at 3.18 is not the same as a much more expensive player like a Lindsey. Lindsey's just as much of a value, but for a higher dollar, which makes him the better play. Okay? Aaron Jones, one of my favorites this week. So there you go. Now I put a like on him, which is why he's popping even more. Christian McCaffrey, everybody, is very chalky. Let's check the ownership projections. This is important. Okay, ownership projections are basically who are the really good plays this week, or they can be. And these things get updated throughout the week, so grain of salt. Gurley, McCaffrey, the big names, Carlos Hyde. So right now, thinking Hyde will be highly owned. We'll see if that holds through the next few updates. I think Spencer Ware information will change that, and that is not yet reflected. That is not yet reflected in the projections. There'll be a new one at some point today. So we'll see how that goes. For now, we can't really trust that, but because so much news has happened since the initial ownership projections came out, and those will be updated, right? But there you go. There's Gus Edwards. Here are some names that you would kind of recognize, top plays or good plays on the slate. Chris Carson. So we'll see how that comes together. Again, fantasy points per dollar. I'm just looking for players who are popping. Who's a value? Okay, Thielen, ooh, high dollar, Cooks, Woods, there we go, Hilton, Humphreys, Adams, all players we like. So a lot of this is agreeing with a lot of what you will see. Why is Hill so low? Because his price just got jacked up, but still awesome play. And points per dollar. Chris Godwin's one of my favorites on the slate. So there we go. Start to kind of look and get a sense of who the players are. Here's the tight end position. So this is kind of how you go through it. Here's your tight end position. You got Ebron, Lacoste, Braid, Kelsey, Gronk. Yeah, that's right. Sounds about right. So we got a little bit of that. Now we take a look at the Geeks pick sheet. This is the sheet that I put together every single week for DFSArmy.com VIP members, subscribers. This is what you get. Now I've done a lot of this research, so you don't have to. But part of the goal of this is I don't want you to just rely on looking at a sheet and copying whatever says bold, whatever looks like in bold on it and just trying to do it that way. You want to understand why these players are plays. And we'll get to the research station next. But let's just get started with this. You're looking at so I always start with the quarterback and, I'm looking through who's bold. If you're looking at my sheet and you see a bolded play, those are my favorite plays of the slate. And you have different kind of designations for each player. Some are tournament only. Some all formats. Some are just kind of like hybrid plays. But I like my all formats guys, and there's a few that I like here. But Cam Newton this week is the core chalk play. So let's start with the most core chalk approach. Now, if you need evidence as to why, jump over to the DFS Army NFL Research Station, which is the ultimate tool that you should be looking at, and it's what I use for the Geeks picks. And you can check out the ratings. And if you see the quarterback ratings, you see they agree with a lot of the names you already see on the list. Why? Because this is a lot of what I'm using to create the list. Cam Newton, the highest rated quarterback by far. This is taking matchup. This is taking projection. This is taking yards allowed by opponent, points allowed by opponent. Everything is built into this rating. So you got Newton. Then you've got Goff, Watson, Winston, Wilson, Mahomes. All of these names. Cousins. All these names are reasonable plays. Except for Derek Carr. Fuck Derek Carr. He sucks. But seriously, they're all playable. Alright, so let's start building a lineup. And the first thing we're going to do is go to our most chalky quarterback play. Not ready to put in Christian McCaffrey yet, but we're going to go to our most chalky quarterback play for this one, right? Because we're going for the gridiron. It's 215 people. We don't have to worry about ownerships. All right. Now, running back. Now, I usually like to pair up a quarterback with a wide receiver, but I'm not sure I'm going to do that with Newton. Newton is very, very attractive naked. And I don't mean without his clothes on. I'm talking about not necessarily pairing him up with a wide receiver, partially because he can be paired up with Christian McCaffrey. They are correlated, but also because he spreads the ball around a lot. Devin Funchess may come back this week, and I don't like Newton in games when you have Funchess, Olsen, McCaffrey, DJ Moore, and Curtis Samuel all vying for targets. He doesn't throw the football enough to spread the love to all of those players, as you can see with these low attempt numbers. It doesn't take him a whole lot because he runs, but 30 attempts, 25 completions. It's only 25 completions, so there's not that much to go around for all of these pass catchers. He usually, as you can see here, usually gets between, let's say, around 20 to 25 completions per game. You know, there's 4 or 5 names to split all those completions to, so everybody's only getting 5 or 6 targets. And that's not quite enough for me in cash for any one player, so we leave him unstacked. That's also a cash approach, and that's what we're trying to do, is initially a cash lineup. In cash lineups, you don't have to stack the quarterback with his wide receiver. Now let's go to running back, okay? We've already looked at, we start with, again, the values. Running back. Top guy overall, Spencer Ware. Significantly better, by the way, at 4.22 for 4K than anyone else. Now again, if we see similar numbers like this, we want to default to the higher salary guy because he's getting much better points. And we also want to consider DVP when we're looking at this stuff. So I've got a 30th DVP, a very, very bad team versus the run. And look at some other ones that we're going to target here. These are the numbers we want, guys. Lindsay, how about some Philip Lindsay here? Well, let's take a look and see what Philip Lindsay has done. Because you can't just trust these numbers. Here's Philip Lindsay. First, let's jump over to the Geeks pick sheet, see what he has to say. AKA, I have to say. But oh, look at that. Core play, bold. Lindsay is signing RB, seems to produce every week. FanDuel jacked up his salary to fair value. Well, I should be looking at... Oh, FanDuel's... but he remains underpriced on Draftkings, which is where we are looking. I love a bargain on Draftkings compared to FanDuel. Let's see what his FanDuel price is just to verify. So I'm clipping a coupon here because he's $7K on FanDuel and $5,600 on Draftkings. $5,400. One important thing to note, that's why I love me some Lindsay on Draftkings, but one important thing to note is people are actually loath to play players who are cheaper. It's a weird phenomenon mentally, but there's a mental process that says, oh, if he's cheap, he must not be good. We got to get past that sort of psychology. All right, now let's take a look at Lindsay's returns and see what he's been doing. Last week, 20 points, 14 carries, 100 yards. this is more interesting to me. The fact that even though he doesn't get a ton of looks, he gets targeted. He is used in the passing game. 7 targets, 5 targets. So he's got a lot of ways to make value. Sure, he didn't get targeted last week. That's going to happen too. But look at all these other weeks where he's getting targets. So it's not a guy that they won't use in the passing game. I really like Lindsey here. I like the fact that, let's take a look at the RB matchups. He should be popping on the DFS Army rating tab. So let's see if that's the case. Of course, it's going to slow load me while I'm doing this. So that is just classic how life goes. We'll come back to that. But I like Lindsey here. There's our wide receiver chart. So we'll wait for that. All right, Lindsey one at a time. Next one on the list. Let's go to Geek's picks real quick, because I want to point out the most obvious play of the slate. If you see this, all in, yeah, let's go. I mean, Hunt is suspended. We've got an all-in play on Spencer Ware. Don't overthink it. He's the chalk running back play. A lot of people try to get too cute with these things, like, oh, he's chalk, I'm not going to use him. Start with this, okay? If you want to get crazy with your tournament lineups, yeah, you can fade guys who are going to be highly owned. But, you know, for an initial build, we start with the ones who are the best plays. So we like Ware. Obviously, he's popping on the Dom. He's the #1 overall projected player on the slate. He's the #1 on a points per dollar basis. You can't beat 16-point projection for 15. It's just too good of a situation. He's going up against a pretty bad run defense. They're only 23rd because they're so bad against the pass too that you could just do whatever you want against these guys. Now, it's really important to use this DVP number because it's very helpful. It'll point out who's in a good spot. Aaron Jones and Christian McCaffrey, good spot. Let's go back to Geek's picks. Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey, bold, core plays. Somebody researched this slate already. Thank you, Geek. You're awesome. This is where we're going to make a choice. And I'm going to show you how the choice is going to be made this week. So I'm going to start with Jones, and you'll see where this whole thing goes. In essence, this week, what we're going to choose between is using Christian McCaffrey and then 2 middling wide receivers and a high-end wide receiver versus using Jones and getting 2 stud wide receivers and 1 lower cost. That assumes we roll out the chalk tight end. Let's get to that. So I'm going to go to tight end first, and then we'll jump over to wide receiver. Why? I like to figure out how much funds I have left over. So tight end defense, and then we'll start to look at wide receivers and start filling that out. So tight end, again, this is a cash lineup. So the first thing I want to do is look at the top value on the slate, and that is easy. Again, how am I finding the top value? I go like that. Points per dollar. Sometimes you can find it by checking projected ownership, although, again, this number is going to change. So we see Kelsey may be slightly higher owned. Rightfully so. Love Kelsey. Cash playable. But the pay down for Ebron is going to be the chalkier way to go. It's got a much better points per dollar value. So we're choosing right now between Kelsey at the top end and Ebron at the bottom end. Let's check the Geeks pick sheet to see if we agree. Got Kelsey, got Ebron, some other players in bold. Great. And I'm adding in mainly because he's popping here, Matt Lacoste. Just this number 32. I like these ratings, these DVP ratings. When you think that Cincinnati is 32nd, Carolina's 31st. Carolina gets torched by tight ends. Cameron Brate is a much better play this week, and I love that they didn't raise his price, and I love that everybody sort of got off of him, even though he's in the same exact situation as last week. The reason everybody's on Ebron is because of his extreme chalkiness after last week's offensive explosion. We've seen Ebron just tear it up on minimal snaps, so it's like, oh my god, if we leave him in there the whole game, he's going to go bananas. Very possible, but also very high owned. I do not believe this number. It will change. Ebron should be 30 to 40% off. All that said, because he's the chalkiest, we're going to go with Ebron. Again, I'm going with the chalkiest plays for my cash lineup initially, and then we're going to build off of it. You'll see how that's done. So let's jump over to defense. Again, back to the research station. Wait, what up? Was I looking at someone before? Yeah, I wanted to show Lindsay. Or just some of these ratings, because we missed it. McCaffrey, 19.8. Aaron Jones, 19.9. Lindsay, 14.9. Miller, 17.5. These ratings are good. Use them. They're really good. Where's Ware? He's not even... Is he updated yet? I don't know. Yeah, not quite. When this gets its update, Ware will pop. I see Hunt is still... Yeah, Hunt is still projected. So that will change. But the idea is these are good ratings. Use them. Notice that McCaffrey, super high. Aaron Jones, even higher. That's why these guys are on the list. Lindsay's up there. Lamar Miller stands out. Now, Miller has some issues of volume. That's why he's not even better, because Cleveland sucks versus the run. Chris Carson's on the list. Tariq Cohen. These are all players you'll see. Gus Edwards. McCoy and Drake. If you're setting up your mass multi-entry, you can use this as well. Who are the good guys? And then you don't mind using some of these ones that kind of like stand out but wouldn't be chalky this week, like a Mixon. I don't really want to do that. This is telling us stay away from Chubb. I mean, you might use a little Chubb. I'm not going to probably be super excited about David Johnson. But again, these are more tournament plays. So this is agreeing with everything we're saying. And to explain further of why it agrees, let's just look at that. Christian McCaffrey, 19.8. Well, what stands out about his situation? A, he's the number one value ranking. Okay. B, his Vegas game total is fantastic. But more so, you'll see as we get to the defensive statistics, this is where a lot of what that rating comes from. McCaffrey's going up against the team ranked 26th in Draftkings fantasy points per game allowed to running backs. 29.6 points per game being allowed by the Bucs. It's the fucking Bucs, and they suck. They're giving up a ton of touchdowns to running backs, whereas, for example, Detroit is not. The Bucs are, the Cardinals are, the Bengals are, and the Browns are. Is this starting to make sense? They're giving up more points. This is interesting, okay? This is a measure of the average of offensive yards per game, rushing yards per game, and defense rushing yards per game allowed, and then offense plus defense receiving yards per game allowed to the position. And as you can see, the Bucs allow some of the most points per game, or the most yards per game to pass-catching running backs. Oh, that's why he's popping, right? McCaffrey, never been a yardage guy. But some of these other situations, here you go. Aaron Jones, he's they're not even putting up that many yards, but Arizona's giving up so many yards that it gives a positive number here. So these are part of the ranking. We want teams that are giving up a lot of yards to running backs and defensively, and running backs that are getting a lot of yards offensively. And when they combine, we take the average, and we're looking for situations to exploit. Very interesting. Joe Mixon popping again. The thing that this isn't taking into account is that the Bengals have shit, and they have a rookie quarterback going, which is why Mixon is not good. So you can't just look at the numbers. Mixon could do okay, but you can't just look at the numbers. You have to understand the situation of the player. Rookie quarterback, things have changed for the Bengals here. Looking for big numbers, though. Who else is that? Who we got? McCoy. Now, you feel lucky, play some McCoy. They're Dolphins giving up tons of points to running backs. I haven't played McCoy all year because I like winners. I don't want quarterbacks from running backs from losing teams. All right, so let's get back to what we were doing, because we haven't even gotten to the whole hybrid part. So we're building a lineup. Got our most of our positions filled. Let's get a defense going. Let's go to Geek's picks. Who do we like on defense this week? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. One of my favorite plays on the board is the Broncos, mainly because the Bengals are rolling out a rookie quarterback who probably sucks. Now, we don't know for sure that they suck, but they probably suck. One of my other favorites here, Chiefs, just because the Raiders, terrible, right? So we have a few situations to exploit. I like the Packers. Again, this Cardinals team giving up tons of points to opposing defenses. Yeah, you pay out for Seattle, going up against Mullins. There's a few situations to exploit, but I want to stay in the cheaper range, so it's going to be between the Broncos and the Chiefs for me right now. They're both all marked all, meaning good for all spots, good for cash. Can go to Buffalo or Green Bay as well. And why do I have so many? Because you never know which one is going to put up the biggest number. We're looking for good situations, but then we have to get to the biggest number. So I'm going to start with the Broncos defense for this particular lineup. I prefer teams at home, but none of these cheaper ones are really at home. Like KC, I've got to take them on the road. Texans, okay at home, but Cleveland's been better lately. So I'm just going to go with the Broncos. Just figuring, you know what, they've been sacking the quarterback and just dealing with this rookie quarterback thing. I like targeting defenses against rookies. I just do. I'd be just as cool with the Packers. All right, let's see how much we have left. $6,800 per player. Now, again, going back to the sheet, let's go to the wide receiver position. Start there. That's the Geeks pick sheet. So who do we like as our top kind of cashy core plays? Well, they stand out pretty much, right? Why isn't Tyreek Hill that? Now, we know that Hill's in a great spot. Sammy Watkins is out. The running back is out. They're going to be throwing even a little bit more. But the problem with him is just 9,100. It's a little high to pay. If you can get there, though, loves me some Reek. Hopkins, good play. But I'm going to go with my bolts. Davante Adams just hasn't failed all season. You want to check it. Let's go to the research station. Check the wide receiver matchups. I'm making this a little more complicated than maybe you need to. Not really, but like in a sense. Kind of. Just to show everything. Okay? What stands out here? We're looking at ratings. First things first. We've got Hopkins rated highly. Thielen, 7.3. Not too bad. Adams, 9.2. He's up there. Robert Woods stands out. All these guys do. Corey Davis, 12.8. That's a very good ranking. So Corey Davis looks very good this week. A little sketchy in his returns, though. How do you determine if a player is like cash viable or not? I'm going to show you right now. And it's very simple. You look at the player's game logs. Okay? What's he doing? And look at Mike Evans, right? 20, 33, 8, 2. 32, 20, 9, 11. Generally good. Generally good. Couple bad games. But a little bit volatile in his returns, right? So let's compare him to some of these other guys. How about Adam Thielen? What's he done? 30, 15, 12. Couple bad games. But a lot of 20s and 30s. That's what we want to see. Couple of mediocres. Who did he play? Well, he played against Chicago. All right. Can forgive that. And that wasn't too bad. But for the most part, this guy is very consistent. All right. Let's take a look at Davante Adams. This is what I'm getting at. Very tough matchups. 20, 30, 21, 16, 21, 38, 32, 16, 18, 20, 20. So he's generally delivering. For 8K, 8, 16, 24, we're looking for we're looking for somebody who's going to be pretty well locked into getting us close to 3x and hopefully has a chance of 4x or more. Right? So 3x on 8K is 8, 16, 24. Let's call it 21 points or 22. 23. That's pretty much what Adams and Thielen's getting you that almost every week. 22, 23, he's got some upside from there. Right? So that's the kind of guy we want. Yeah, he had a couple of weeks, but most of the weeks he's beaten that. So he's been more than a 3x guy. He has a great shot. So I want to get some Thielen in my lineup. I like Davante Adams. How much money do we have left? Now we can look at a few different possibilities. If I went Thielen, I can go, all right, Woods was highly rated. Now how much money do I have left? I can go Woods and Corey Davis. That's interesting. Now is Woods a cash play? Let's take a look. Not necessarily. 7K, 714, 21. We want a guy who gets you 21. Hasn't been quite there yet. Now this is a particularly good matchup for him, but 21 has been more of the exception than the commonality for Robert Woods. So I'm not super confident as a cash play. I love Robert Woods. Let's take a look at, but maybe not as the cash play of the week, right? That team has too many wide receivers to really trust any one in cash. So let's take a look at Corey Davis. 4 targets, 4 targets. He did a lot on 4 targets a couple weeks ago. 10 targets before that, 10 and 10. Did a little bit. So I like Corey Davis here, but he is definitely a volatile. He gets you 12, he gets you 4, he gets 3. That's scary. 35, 5, 10. This guy's all over the place. Now it's a plus that his numbers are lower, but I have a different approach. So what if we went all the way up to Davante Adams, because again, I like him at home. Just no one else to real. I do like Aaron Jones. I don't like to have 2 players from the same team in a cash lineup, ideally, but I'm not going to force it to not happen, because in some sense, an Aaron Jones, Davante Adams lineup will get me all of, or most of the touchdowns for the Packers, right? So let's see the last spot. I'm going to go back to Geek's picks. Got some hybrid plays down here. I'm looking at the dollar amounts, right? 4,300. Moncrief, bold but GPP only. GPP only, if you see it on my sheet, is a warning. This is not a hybrid play. Okay, it's for your tournament lineups. It's basically a player that I've looked at. I got to pull Deshaun Jackson off. But it's basically a player that I've looked at and said, I was thinking about that he might be a hybrid play, but the research has led me to believe that this guy is more of a tournament-only situation. And, that'll be just volatility of returns or various reasons, but it's a warning. Don't play him in hybrids. Here's a guy I like a lot. Deshaun Jackson, it says if Deshaun Jackson misses the game, Godwin will snap count will increase significantly. Here's the deal. Now we know Deshaun Jackson is missing this game. And for that reason, Godwin, who's been pretty good in limited snaps, is now going to get a full snap share. This is a guy who's been okay for 3,900. Anyway, he's done all right. 17s, get you decent games. Some duds, but some decent games. This is a high-scoring game. No Deshaun Jackson, so I like Chris Godwin here as a salary saver. I have 600 left. Now here's a couple of different approaches. So we're seeing I have 600 left. So I mentioned earlier there's 2 ways to build a lineup on this one. Let's take a look at an alternative construction. Like this is a fine lineup. I usually like to spend the whole cap, but I'm not sure that any of these other defenses are better, for example, than Broncos. You can go with Packers at home against Arizona. Like I have a little extra to spend. I could spend on the Bears, but they're on the road. I like home defenses. I can certainly spend on the Titans, but again, I'd like it more if Darnold was playing. Lots of opportunities here. Or we can go a different way and say, all right, you know what? I didn't like having Adams and Aaron Jones in the same cash approach lineup. So what if we did something a little different and we tried to upgrade from Lindsey to Christian McCaffrey? How much money do we have left? And then I'm going to look and see if anything is appealing here for cash. So we can do that. I can leave this with McCaffrey, or with Lindsey, who I like him a lot here, although I don't think he's going to outscore Christian McCaffrey. I just like the salary savings. And I might say, all right, well, what if I went with Kelsey? What am I left with? Well, 5,700. That gets me either DJ Moore or Corey Davis or even Doug Baldwin. But I want to go with the chalkiest approach. And to me this week, my chalkiest approach will be to remain with Ebron, and go with the stud wide receiver. Again, actually another consideration would be Hopkins. He's been pretty good, but not quite great enough to be that excited about paying up for him. We go with Devontae Adams. Boom. Now, I want to show the process of entering a lineup. So, there we go. I was just talking about these are hybrid lineups. Now, how do we do it? All right, this was the cash lineup. So, I'm going to enter that, right? And I'm going to change this, by the way, guys. So, don't think you've stolen my cash lineup here. This is just Saturday afternoon stuff. I'm showing you how to do this. Now, I'm going to go to my head-to-heads because this is how you're going to set up your DFS Army ladder. And if you're not familiar with the DFS Army ladder, go to dfsarmy.com, okay, and learn it. This is what we do with hybrid lineups. And then I'm going to show you how I build off of this. So stick around. This is not finished yet. But one of the things you want to go to is check out the General Strategy tab on dfsarmy.com. Go to the ladder system. Read it. Learn it. It's how you enter the contest. Head-to-heads and 50-50s. 3-man, 10-man, 40 to 99-man GPPs, 100-man, large field tournaments. This is how you build up your single entry on this one lineup. So I'm going to show you how I do that. First things first, we're going to start with some head-to-head contests. And this is just what I do. I don't bum hunt people. And that's just because I don't feel that that's something I personally want to do. Meaning, I'm not going to go into the head-to-head. Now, I'll show you how to bum hunt, even though I don't do it. And I'm going to go in here and look for somebody without a badge, or a low badge of some sort, and then just try to attack them, right? I'm just going to enter them randomly and let the computer match me up with whoever it wants. That way, I get a nice random distribution of entries. I'm in there, guys. Chief ST, at me, bro. At me. If you see my name, hit me up. Head to head. Right? So now I'm setting up my head to heads. Just going to put a bunch of these in. I'm going to pay attention to how much I'm putting in. I'm just kind of randomly doing it here for the purpose of the video. I just want to get enough in there that I'm covered for about 50% of the dollar amount that I want to use. So I'll run this a few times, kind of keeping an eye on the number here. Try to get a couple hundy going in here so I could put in a couple hundred worth of lineups. All right, because this is a cash lineup. So this will be, the idea of this build. And again, I will change this before Sunday, and don't think you stole a cash lineup and you're so slick. But I'll change this before Sunday, but it's just the idea to show you how to do it. All right, now let's jump over to tournaments. I already entered the $27, 215-person contest, right? So now I want to scale up a little bit. Or scale up in size. So let's go down to smaller contests. First we'll go to multipliers. I'll get a couple of triple ups going. There you go. Get a triple up going. I already have my head-to-heads. I'll do a couple of double ups. Actually, I prefer 50-50s to double ups, so always try to see if you can get to the section that shows the 50-50s. Why? Because the margin is lower. Let me show you something. Little trick. Little pro tip. Look at the margin. 13%. 13%. Why are you paying that? Why? These are single entry contests. Go down. Scroll down. 10%. How about that? Catch you outside. How about that? 10% margin. You might be thinking, you're fucking crazy, man. Who gives a shit about 10% versus 13%? It's all the same shit. I either win or I lose. Number one, you have a better chance of winning a 50-50. It pays out 50% of the entrants. The double up only pays out 43% of the entrants. And on top of that, the fact that double ups charge you a much higher rake. The guaranteed ones do. Not all of them. Pay attention to that number. It's always the guaranteed ones, the one with the star. How do you know? They got a star. Okay? Star means that the operator is excited for you to enter it because they make a little more money when you do. But that kills margins. Double ups, 50-50s, cash games, margin is everything. Don't enter ones that charge 13%. Just do the 10% ones. Okay, that just saved you a lot of money over the course of the year. This is for people who are into that. All right, so I entered a bunch of double ups, entered some triple ups. Now let's go to some smaller tournaments. That's a 15-person contest. A 65-person contest, I'm sorry. Yeah, I like that. $11% margin, pays out the top 5 out of 21, so 23% paid. A win gets you a couple hundy. That's a contest I like. You can do a cash game entry like that. Now you might be thinking, Kevin, this is fucking boring me, man. Where's the big bucks? Guys, those big dollar contests are there to suck you in, okay? You're not going to win it. Here's a mini slam. Want to do a little higher? Boom. That's 600 entrants. And then, of course, you can enter your massive tournaments. Okay, now this lineup is not designed to win or cash in this style of contest. It probably won't. This is literally the chalkiest players ever. So I'm not even going to bother putting it in something like this. I'm not going to bother. But how do we build out from there? Okay, that's really what this has been all about. Because that's an initial cash lineup. How do I build hybrids? All right, let's get started. So I've already built that one lineup. Now let's say I want to attack this $4 tournament or something. Or, you know, give me let me find a contest that I want to attack with a bunch of entries. Let's go to the featured. I'm going to find, here it is. And that's a super booster. Okay, let's check out this one. All right, so this is going to be, let's call it a contest I want to attack with a bunch of different entries. Where is that? Okay. Now, first thing I'm going to do is import my old lineup, the one I just made. Because why? I want to build off of it. A lot of these players are going to stay the same, but I'm like, all right, I already entered this one. Now what can I change? Well, we talked about it before. I like the idea of going up to McCaffrey. I want McCaffrey in my life, right? So in order to pull that off, I've got to pay down at a couple of other spots. I've got to change some things around. All right, so I want to pull some of this chalk out of the lineup. Let's start with changing up the quarterback. This is the easiest way to build a hybrid, right? I've got Thielen in here, so you know what? Let's start doing more tournament hybrid lineups, right? Because we're building off of our cash. So I took out Cam Newton. I put in Cousins. Now he's going to be technically a stack with Thielen scenario. All right? Now, I've done that. One of the things I actually like in that particular game is to game stack it. So if Cousins is going to be my quarterback, they're playing against New England, let's put Gronkowski in there. He's not that much more than Ebron, and he gets us off the Ebron chalk. This is a tournament entry, so it's okay to be off the chalk. Now how much is left? 5K? I don't like Funches. Reynolds, okay. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at the Geeks pick sheet here. See what's popping. At the salary range. Corey Davis at 55 is an all-play. Deshaun Jackson, obviously out. Moncrief, tournament only. Demaryius Thomas, hybrid tournament. Not a whole lot going on down there. So what I want to try to do is find a little more salary to get to maybe a better play. Let's take a look here and just see if any of these guys are really popping. Baldwin 8, DJ Moore, Alshon Jeffrey, no. Corey Davis. Hopkins. Odell. Not loving him. So, where can we squeeze some extra cash off? How about, again, going back to my core Lindsay, situation, and then you've got 8,400. What if I put in Stephon Diggs for the double stack? All right, so now we've built the lineup starts coming together, right? And what's happening here? I've got Cousins, Thielen, Diggs, Gronk. So now I've got a full game stack going of the Patriots Vikings game, which is something that if you read the Geeks Pick strategy list that I talked about quite a bit with Cousins. Cousins overlooked, 54 projection, key ingredient shootout game, both commanding offenses. Cousins easy stack with Thielen, Diggs, or both. So there we go. Cousins, Thielen, Diggs. We're bringing it back around with Gronk in that lineup. Now I've got 800 left over. That's too much left over for my comfort. So where can I upgrade? How about if I went back to Ebron? Actually, no. We're going to leave in Gronk because we want that game stack. Now if I go to 4,700 at wide receiver, I've got no one I like. Kind of Demaryius Thomas, Adam Humphrey, sort of. I really like Godwin this week, so I keep winding up back on him. Let's see if I can spend up somewhere else. Hate paying up for a defense. I'd almost rather leave the money on the table, but let's say we did that. Is there any other way? There is one other way. If we go down at tight end to Cameron Brate, more of a tournament play. Let's see what happens here at running back. Oh, I can get Reek in there. Christian McCaffrey. So there is your... All right, because I want to mix it up a bit. That's another approach. Still have game stack action, or team stack action, Cousins, Thielen, Diggs. We lost our game stack because we pulled out Gronk, but I was able to squeeze Christian McCaffrey in there without leaving up too much salary. That's a hybrid lineup. It's for tournaments. You can enter that in this. I took off some of the chalk. So now we can start to get involved with these type of tournaments. Can still do a small hybrid contest. Like the mini Hail Mary, 490 entrants. We can go to our head-to-heads. Now, I don't do head-to-heads with this type. Again, I do that mainly with the initial or with what I would call secondary lineups that aren't necessarily going like too far off chalk. This one's very off chalk, so I'm going to leave it as a more of a tournament play. But definitely the kind of thing that if I'm attacking the Millie Maker, that's how I build off lineups off the initial. I want to switch off some of the chalk and kind of get onto some different spots. Brate instead of Ebron here. Everybody's going to be on Ebron, that kind of thing. We go back again. Let's do it again. Import the one we just made, right? Now I want to change it up. So who's the next quarterback on the list that we want to build a lineup around? Oh, Jameis Winston. Okay, let's build a lineup off Jameis Winston. He's bold. Right, I go through them one by one. Or Deshaun Watson. Go through them one by one to create the hybrids. I'm going Winston on this one. Okay, let's go. Jameis. Sounds good. We're going to take out Thielen and Diggs here. I don't want to double up that. Now, the reason that other one wasn't a cash play is because Thielen and Diggs together is too much from one team. Still like Thielen, standalone play. We can go to Evans with Winston if we want. I don't like this matchup. I'm going to show you why I don't love the matchup for Evans this week. Check out the cornerback wide receiver chart. This is another spot where you can really get some sense of players. So I'm going to go and show you, see, Diggs, Stephon Gilmore. Thielen's going to avoid that. He'll get Jason McCourty, but these guys are both very good. That's just a little bit of coverage, but I just don't think that matters that much this week. But where was I? Evans, Tampa. Who's Evans facing? James Bradbury, 31. 31.8. Quarterback rating allowed, 77.2. So Bradbury's very good. When you see this number, the redder it is, the better the player has been this year. And look at that. JETS, Morris Davis, Morris Claiborne, very solid this season. He's going to be on Corey Davis. So reason for concern with Corey Davis, right there. How about Evans and Bradbury? Reason for concern, which is one of the reasons why I loves me some Godwin. Look at this. Chris Godwin, he's getting Dante Jackson. He's got a negative cover rating. Captain Motherland and Humphreys, negative cover rating. So the only really good cover corner is probably going to be on Evans. Now, the reason that I'm not fully scared of Evans is because you would think that the Bucs will move him around and get him off of Bradbury a little bit, but you can't be confident in that in a cash lineup, which is why we're going to avoid that outside of stacks. But even in this stack lineup, I don't like the whole Evans thing. That's more GPP for me with that tough matchup. So I'm going to go with Winston Godwin. Now let's mix in some Carolina action with Christian McCaffrey. All right, he's already there. Now we're starting to get a game stack going. Who's left? 7,300. Who can we get? Well, we already like Woods. We like Cook. We like Edelman. Let's get off of this guy. Actually, Winston Brait. Brait works. So now we've got a double stack. Let's leave that going. I've got Winston, Brait, McCaffrey, Godwin. 2 Tampa pass catchers, 1 player from Carolina. McCaffrey. That's a game stack. Got 7,300 left. What can I do? Well, I can switch up my running back, get Aaron Jones in there, like him. Takes me down to 6K at wide receiver. T.Y. Hilton, not bad. Josh Gordon, not bad. Tyler Lockett. All these guys are okay. I'd like to get up to Manny B and Manny Sanders, which I think I can get to. I'd love to get to Robert Woods, but I think I can get to Manny Sanders here, right? So how do I do that? I'm going to go switch up my defense. Let's throw in, who do you like? The Chiefs, right? Sorry, I have this memorized, so I don't jump back and forth on the video as much, but we got the Chiefs in there. Bold, all. Good play on the road. Going to be crushing the Raiders. Completely overmatched team. Going to be smoking them. The Chiefs are going to be hanging out with Snoop Dogg in LA, smoking the Raiders like the Chronic. Where was I? There we go. Now it all fits. I can get Manny Sanders. I got Godwin. I got a game stack with Winston, Godwin, McCaffrey, Brait, all from the same game. Oh, Mike Evans is in there. Did I say I didn't want Mike Evans? So I'm going to switch him up, go back to Devontae Adams. One of my favorite plays. That's 2 players from Packers. Don't like it. Let's go with Thielen. That's it. That's a hybrid lineup. Just built one. You're making 20 lineups. We're going to do this over and over again. Putting it in high dollar because it's a game stack. It's a tournament entry in a sense. But I can also put a lineup like that in smaller tournaments. So let's go back to find those minis, right? Here we go. We can do something like this. We can go to our head-to-heads. Don't want head-to-heads, but we can go to small leagues. Here we are. Now what I'm looking for is to find the smaller contests. Here we go. How about this? Very winnable. Let's try to win that. 43 person. Let's look at the numbers. 43 person. Pays out 23% of finishers. Reasonable margin. First place, 200. Okay. Gotta win that. It's winnable. Come in first place in that thing. That's your basics. Right? We go back, we do it again. import the last lineup. I'm going to build off of it. Back to the picks. All right, we did a Winston one, right? We did a Winston one. We did a Cousins one. Who's next? You want to try Deshaun Watson? How about a Jared Goff lineup? I like that. Let's do a Jared Goff lineup. Okay, let's switch it up. Goff. Now I can get my homie Bobby Woods. Let's go. Okay, let's go back to my cheap trio of solid running backs this week. Let's switch back to our chalk tight end, right? What do we have left? 2K. Okay, that's a lot. Let's get off Godwin. He's for all intents and purposes, he's a turd. How about a double stack and maybe get either Cooks or Josh Reynolds in the mix? Let's go with Cooks, right? How much we got left? Kenny G? Manny Sanders? All right, what does it look like with Reynolds? This is going to be more. Reynolds for me is a little bit more tournament only. Let's take a look. 8 targets, 5 targets. You know, when he's played for Cup, he's done okay. He's done well. But I think he's going to be on the outside this time, but we'll see. So we did a double stack now with Jared Goff. What do we have left? 9. Ooh, so close to reek. Gurley doesn't really go with Goff that well. I kind of think it's either going to be Gurley or Goff. I don't really want to pair those two. So again, if I go to CMAC, I can grab a Corey Davis. We've seen that Corey Davis's matchup isn't great, but I actually want to take a look at Doug Baldwin. Let's look at his matchup. Where's our correlation chart? Doug Baldwin. Seattle, Doug Baldwin. Yeah. Not bad. Anytime you see a positive number. Now, Richard Sherman, going to be on the outside wide receiver, so I'll spend time on Moore and some time on Lockett. You could play Lockett here, because Kello Witherspoon is just horrible. But Baldwin in the slot should do really well. I believe the 49ers are giving up the most points per team to the slot cornerback position, to the slot wide receiver position. Yeah, 15. What's that? Points per game? Oh, yards per reception allowed. That's not good. So Baldwin is in play here. I don't love the low volume that Baldwin normally gets as a cash play, but he's certainly playable as a GPP or hybrid contest type target. So we can go like this, or we can do it different. If you really want to double stack this bad boy, we can get Cooks in there, and then don't have a whole lot left. So we'll have to go back to somebody cheaper, even Miller. We could start to branch off of some of these names. I don't love Miller, but I kind of like Miller. But that gets you up to 7,700. Let's see what we can get. Ooh, Julio Jones. Not a great matchup, but, you know, get Julio Jones in there, get Stephon Diggs in there. There's a few ways to go here. Could go with Kenny Galladay and do more of a game stack situation. Now I can get back up to, oh, I think I like this, Lindsey. And now I've got a game stack built, Goff, Cooks, Woods, Galladay, with Lindsey, Chiefs defense. I can switch that defense up because I just did them, and maybe I don't want another one. We go back to the Broncos. We've got a Goff, Cooks, Woods, Galladay. That's game stack, chalk, 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 chalk. So this is a hybrid lineup. You're mixing in the chalky plays. Now these are what I consider chalky. You might have your own ideas. But if I'm going into a contest thinking, all right, there are certain players that I really love. I love Jones, I love Spencer Ware, I love Philip Lindsay, I love Christian McCaffrey, I love Eric Ebron. Why? Because they're underpriced. The entire goal of projecting these games and projecting these players is, in essence, to handicap against the salary structure that either FanDuel or Draftkings has put together. This is breaking it down very simple. So again, we go back to these numbers and we're trying to see where the salary algorithm went wrong. when you handicap games for sports betting, what you're trying to do is figure out where the odds are wrong, where you can skew the odds slightly in your favor. When you play poker and you're playing certain hands and certain approaches, everything's about skewing the odds just slightly in your favor. Does that mean it will always work out? No. Doesn't. But the more we skew the odds in our favor by using the best values, the better our chances are of having success. And when you get into tournaments, there's an element of game theory and ownership projections, but when you break it all down, that's really what it comes down to. I'm trying to look for players that are mispriced, that will score more than salary-based expectations. And these value numbers tell the tale. But at the same time, I don't want to overexpose to just the few players that pop. Yeah, Thielen, Cooks, Woods, these guys are all popping. But we don't want to overexpose. Godwin, that's my boy. Humphreys, Adams. These are all names you see me using. Why? Because they're the best value plays. And then we want to start to do some secondary things like lineup construction methodology, where you want to stack games. Because what happens in a game? Either a game is a shit. We saw with the Dallas game, the whole thing's a shitfest. But when you stack games, it gets you off of those players in non-stack game lineups. So there are certain players like Mike Evans, I've said, I only use him in stacks with Winston. I'm not going to stand alone use him. Why? Because his returns are very volatile. Now, I love Winston, so I'll make a bunch of lineups. I'll get my exposure to Evans. But I'm not going to make a bunch of lineups around the guy that don't have Winston in them. I'm in game stacks with Newton or Winston, but that's it. All right, so going player by player. So that's a basic. This video has just been going on and on, but that's a basic description of how to use DFS Army tools to create your hybrid lineups and the technique to create the hybrid lineups. Look at the values, observe them. Don't just blindly use the value plays. Check it against the Geek's Pick sheet. If you want to use my research, do your own research. But if you want to use mine, check it against the sheet. If the player is not showing, if he's not on my sheet, this is pretty comprehensive. If he's not on my sheet, you probably don't want to use him. If he's marked as GPP only, there's a reason for it. Read the description. Chris Carson seems like he's in a great spot, 5,200. Why is he GPP only? Because you can't trust Seattle with the running back position. They mix it up. Just when you think Carson's going to get all the touches, they bring in Penny, they bring in Davis. Fuck those guys. GPP only. Why is Breida GPP only? His team is underdog. It's a massive underdog. They're projected to lose and only score 18 points. I don't want to get crazy with a player like that in my cash game lineup. I want players who are running backs who are going to win, who are heavily favored, who are in games with high projected scores. That's why these guys are where they are. Gurley's in a great spot. We need to get some Gurley in those lineups. Everybody, Christian McCaffrey's chalk this week. No one's talking about Gurley. That is the best time to play Gurley. It's coming off a down game. There's a great chance Gurley's going to put. As a matter of fact, I'm jumping back in. You know what? I haven't had enough Gurley in my life. Let's get some Gurley exposure. And this is a lot of how these lineups really come together. Now, it's not going to be in a golf lineup, so let's find a different approach. How about a Watson-Hopkins combo? Just got a bonus one. Going to go back to my boy Godwin. Now, I don't want to overexpose to any one player. I really love Godwin. I've said it many times on this thing. I like him this week. He's in a great spot. Blah, blah, blah. Now, 4,900 at wide receiver. I get Reynolds in there. But you know what? I kind of like Demaryius Thomas here to combine with Watson. I got Watson, Thomas. That's a triple stack. I can upgrade my defense here. Do a little something different. I don't think I'm going to. I really like the Broncos. I'll switch these around. How about Miami? Miami kind of sucks. So, all right, we'll leave the Broncos. Or I can switch up my David Njoku, Like, this is one of those times when it's like GPP versus cash, right? In GPP, I might add in Njoku to get the full game stack going. Cleveland, Houston, Cleveland, Houston, Cleveland, Houston, Cleveland, Houston. Like, I get a bunch of players from that game. Njoku, how's he been doing lately? So volatile. Playable. It's a good matchup. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Gurley. Njoku. So I just changed my exposures a little bit. This is going to affect all of my exposures. But I'm still sticking with my core. I like Jones. I wear in almost every lineup. You get the idea. So I'm going to put that one in there. Right? That's a game stack, so that is worthy of the biggest of tournaments. I'm judging these as I make them. That's worthy of a large tournament. Okay. But I also want to get involved with small tournaments with every lineup. I always put every lineup in these little ones. Dollar. Of course I'm going to play it. But I want to get exposure in a medium or smaller contest, right? Because this can win. So I'm going to get a couple of them going like that. Then that's the idea. So 1,000, 500, winnable contest. And the more out there, the more game stacky it is, the more off chalk it is, the larger the contest I want to use to enter it in. But as I'm starting with this core, when I later do my mass multi-entry stuff, I can actually fade some of these guys. Or not, I'll be okay not taking very heavy Ware, Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey. These names that I took so much in these hybrid lineups that I'm hand building, I don't need to, if I make 150 with the Domination Station and I set up my stacks and all of that, I don't need to worry about those players because I got them covered. I've got my exposure covered. So there you have it. Guys, I went off way longer than I wanted to here. I hope you enjoyed this video. 1 hour of hybrid lineup building. DFS Army. If you haven't signed up yet, you're crazy. What are you doing? I mean, NFL, NBA, every sport, experts, pros, the whole deal. Most of you guys who are watching this are DFS Army VIPs. You can always ask me questions in my channel, in our team forums, Geek Speak channel. That seems to be the NFL place where people go now, so check it out. And this was a little bonus video today, so I will be back with my normal VIP Players Club. Not sure how different it's going to be. This pretty much went through the whole slate, so we'll see. But I hope you enjoy. Ask me questions. Hybrid lineups.